Hello, everyone. My name is Parker. Welcome to another episode of the Finding Solutions channel. Today, we have Tom Ryan hopping on, joining us today. Good to see you guys. How you guys doing?
Hey, doing
Good.
great, Parker.
Love it. No, it's always good to have you guys on. Today, we have a pretty exciting topic we're going to chat about. Obviously, Chat GPT is sweeping everyone's feeds. Everyone knows about Chat GPT. We're going to talk about 3 ways that Chat GPT will change enterprise software. So, obviously, there's multiple different routes that can be taken for this, but the 3 we want to hit on is the knowledge bot aspect, language models, and the last one is dynamic translation. So those are kind of the 3 you want to hit on, and I kind of want to toss the baton to Tom to kind of go through the first one there. So
Yeah. Thanks, Parker. So,
yeah,
as you said, I mean, it's really an exciting time. I mean, as a technologist, I don't know that I've ever seen so much buzz around something that I have with something like ChatGPT and Bard and other large language models. And so, as you said, the first one, as we look at the 3 that we kind of came up with, the first one of a knowledge bot is kind of the easy one in some ways, right? It's the intuitive one, and it's actually something we've actually had a chance to play around with. So the idea that you can seed these large language models with a bunch of data or specific data to your circumstance, like say you have a website and you want to feed all of the data on your website, and you have PDF files and you want to give that to ChatGPT, and there's technical ways to do this. And then you turn that bot loose, like you say, okay, I'm an enterprise piece of software. I want that bot to actually interact with my own employees, for example. So if they have a question, maybe they're asking the bot first. I've never seen technology. I didn't think I would see technology move so fast to be so good at that task. So this knowledge bot would come up and say, "Okay, I know the answer to that question. You're gonna ask me like, hey, when's how much what's our policy on sick leave? Is it paid or unpaid?" It can actually search the employee manual, and not only the employee manual, maybe your specific manual for you, and
Yeah.
give you a great natural language answer.
The thing I like about that, like I'm excited to see like Google and Apple, because we've had the digital assistant for a while with like
Yeah,
Siri, Google
yeah.
Assistant. But to be honest, like I don't even use those anymore. Like if I'm searching for anything right now, rather than even just searching on the internet, like if I go ask Bard or Chat GPT, like their personal results that you get back are amazing. I can't wait till they make, that's going to become a true digital assistant versus the ones that they've, Siri and Google Assistant that have been out there for a while. When they integrate those, that'll be really exciting.
Yeah, I agree. It blows them away. And I think
Much
the
more
key
personal.
is, yeah, the key with the knowledge bot, you hit on it, is you can, if it's done right in enterprise software, it's going to know about your data.
Yeah.
If you just go to ChatGPT or Bard right now and ask it a question, it's going to be great giving you a generic answer. But if you ask a question, let's just say you're a banking enterprise software platform and you want to be able to ask it like, hey, when am I going to run out of money? That question is actually pretty hard to answer from a like traditional technology point of view. But for a large language model, it can actually understand the question really well, take into account the general knowledge of the web, like what does run out of money mean, all this stuff, and then actually personalize it behind the scenes, all with security
Yeah.
baked in, looking at your account and your
Looking at
trend and say,
the trend of your spend and
right. And it might answer like, hey, dude, cool the jets. You're running out next week, uh, but that's the nice thing is it can actually answer with a bit of personality and context. And that's, I think, the difference with the new crop of knowledge bots is it's so good at combining
yeah.
that private data with the public understanding of
Yeah,
language.
I'm really excited too. Like you brought this up, Tom, before in our conversations, but I'm excited for the, kind of the picture I think you painted is, that the executives driving down the road and they call into this digital assistant and they say, give me this, give me these numbers, tell me who's, committing fraud, or, who's my best performer this last quarter. That, they'll be able to do that, and it can analyze all the data for the company and give them a language, response back right while they're driving their car, or, they can text a message to it and get the results back right away. So the ability to go get data, little pieces of data immediately, is really, really powerful for executives, I think, as well.
Yeah, you've moved to, I think, our number 2 points. The number one
Sorry,
was
yeah.
knowledge bot. No. They're dovetailed, right? Because a knowledge bot is, I guess, the way I look at it, that it can consume just general information and have this conversation, typically a chat conversation, text or some kind of chat. The second one that Parker mentioned, the full kind of thought behind this one is it's a natural language model interface for software. That's a mouthful, but if you look at the trend, like if you look at the history of computing, at some point, like they were using punch cards and stacks of them and putting them in a machine. And that predates me, even though I'm getting old and I know a lot of this old tech. I never had to do that. And they had little holes and not holes, and you put it in a stack, and that's your input to the computer. And even before that, I mean, like looms, like weaving looms were built on some of these kind of pattern hole and not hole inputs, where it would do patterns based off of that. So one of the natural new, first input devices was a keyboard. We had a keyboard, and most early systems were keyboard. Then we moved to mouse, and then we moved to things like touch screens. And then the thing that Apple has done so well over the years is they don't necessarily invent new input technologies, but they refine it and hone it. Things like the multi-touch screen in the original iPhone was revolutionary. Before that, it was all BlackBerry and physical keys. The crown on a watch, they're all new input devices. The new Vision Pro, it's a brand new way to, input, even though it's been around, they're polishing it. Well, I think in that way, the natural language model interface to data is going to be new. And yeah, digital assistants have been there forever. But to your point, Ryan, the ease in which we can get at the right answers with the very, very custom data that we have is going to be revolutionized. I think this is the biggest one of all that we're going to talk about today. It is a new form of input and output that we've never had before. And it's going to mimic just having this type of conversation, like what you, Parker, and I are doing today. I think enterprise software, that is the next evolution, is having conversations with your data to where you can get to the right answers without needing a lot of graphs and charts and inputs and toggles and logins and all of that.
Or to call somebody and have them go research it, pull the information, and synthesize it, present it to you. Like you could just instantly almost get it. I know we when we've had conversations with Parker in the past, this kind of stuff kind of scares him a little bit, but
it's crazy to think about. Obviously it's getting integrated in everything, but it is scary. But to your point, getting data instantaneously is unmatched. So
when the aliens and the UFOs give us new tech, we just got to embrace it, right? Just kidding. I think all of these things are both exciting and can be a little scary for sure. That one has its own pros and cons, but I'm really particularly excited about that, because the truth is, Ryan and I have been managers a lot of our career. We've been reporting to other people that are above us in companies. People actually just want a natural language conversation most of the time anyway. Hey, Ryan, are we on track for this software release? Oh, we're not. How many bugs do we have? Let's talk through them. Oh, we've got 5 high priority ones. Well, which ones can we live without? That is actually how we'd rather interface with data for a lot of it. Now, there's always exceptions. You can't get rid of a pie chart or a lot of times different kind of displays, but it's going to be an exciting time.
Yeah, for sure.
So the last one, I guess we could move to this last one. We could go on for days, I think, talking about the first couple. So this is something we've talked a lot about. And in fact, we're implementing all 3 of these. And this last one is something that I'm sure is happening in a lot of different places. But to our knowledge, it's a little bit of a new way to look at translation. So, I think all 3 of us speak another language, right? I speak Cantonese. I don't know if speak's the right word anymore. I used to speak some Cantonese, which is a Chinese dialect. Parker, you speak Spanish. Ryan, you speak Portuguese. So we all kind of understand this idea of translation. And because of it, we all knew a lot of the shortcomings of something like Google Translate. Even though it was good, it's been great for a long time. And I'm sure their new version where it's underpinned with these large language models is even better. And then beyond that, we all knew the weakness of, hey, let's say we have software and we have a bunch of strings or words and sentences we want to be translated. We'd have to give it to a translation service in the past. And that's fine. That works really well. But I don't know, Ryan, before I kind of dive into this, how do you think
that wrong? Bring that up because we just had a translation recently where we were moving something to Spanish and, on our time clock solution, and, on English, it's the punch button, right? Punch in, punch out. Well, the translation service that we used, we probably should have just gone with Chat GPT or something like that. It was literally
punch in the face.
Punch somebody in the face was the translation we got back. So it was like, come on, guys, you know that we're a time and attendance solution, and yet they still got it wrong. But yet when
Absolutely.
what the first thing we did when we got that back, and the client was like, hey, this is wrong. We went to like Chat GPT, and I think on one side, and I went to Bard on the other side. We asked for it, and they came back with fantastic translations about what it should be, and multiple different options. And here's what's most commonly used in software. So it did an entire analysis online of how this is used. As long as it was prompted correctly, it went and looked at other software, and it came back with the right translations for us and gave us a couple of options. And so it was actually worked really well.
Man, you've hit on something that just really rings true to me, is that everything that's to do with language has to do with context. And I think about even ancient languages or ancient books, and it's all about context as to the meaning. And so that's where these large language models just are so superior. They understand that context. They knew, hey, in software, this is a different thing, and in English, it's all the same word, but in software, it's completely different. And so there's this class of translations that's kind of the software strings, let's call it. But what I'm most excited about with translations with large language models like Bard and Chat GPT are what I'd consider more on-the-fly translations. So we know that Android and Google already do this with text messages. You can send a text, and it's like the Star Trek translator. You can show it in English on your side. You could be talking to somebody in Hmong or something, and see it in English. Then you reply in English. It shows them in their native language. That's something that until now I would have been very leery of, that kind of translation using traditional tools. It can't keep track of the flow of the conversation. And if you're going to try to translate it on the fly, it'll suffer from what you just mentioned. The context will be so small, it won't know all this surrounding conversations. Well, with ChatGPT and Bard and these others, you can feel pretty confident to feed it the past history and say, go ahead and translate this into the user's native language. That way, if you have enterprise software, back to enterprise software, and you have communication tools or messages or anything that has complex text that's natural language, you can translate on the fly, on the wire, to the person that's going to both read it, and then, of course, the person that's getting sent back to.
Well, and the thing that's cool about it is that it's conversational, and you can add, different elements to it, and you make it funny, the way you prompt it is just amazing what you can do with it. But I think that's one of the biggest innovations, Tom. I'm excited to see it in our solution.
Yeah.
As you're trying to onboard somebody or hire somebody, the conversations that they have, where they may just text back, hey, how much does this position offer? Or what hours am I allowed to? And there's all kinds of things that you could have with that. The chat bot now is answering those questions and translating it on the fly in the native language of the employee that you're working. So I know a lot of the industries we work with, they have people working from all different places, and they, have multiple different languages. So I'm thinking of one of our, up in Canada, they have a lot of different, languages up there. And so it's fantastic to be, whether you're the HR specialist sending a message, or it's the chat bot automatically interacting with the client, with the candidate, it can translate it in their native tongue back and forth. And it's really accurate.
Yeah, I mean, one other quick example. So we've just released our knowledge bot, which allows our clients to load up web pages and PDFs into what we'd call the knowledge base. So what does this knowledge run on? Well, yes, of course, the cultural context of the whole internet, but also this very specific knowledge. One of the things we've instructed our bot to do is whatever question is asked, whatever language the question is asked in, return the response in the same language. So it's hitting on exactly what you're saying, Ryan. Like, if I ask in Spanish and I don't know how to say it, Parker, I won't put you on the spot, but like, hey, how many days off a year do I get? Well, that's not a question the internet knows. That's my employee policy handbook. And it's all in, a lot of times that's stuck in English if I'm a US company. What's cool is that the large language models, it can find the answer. And then with proper prompt engineering, it can translate the answer on the fly back to the user to where they don't even know that thing wasn't in Spanish in the first place, or whatever. I've played with it. It can answer in dead languages that no longer exist, and very obscure languages. I don't know how many people.
Languages.
Or Klingon. I mean, it can do it to the extent there's data out there. It can try to do it. It's pretty impressive.
Yeah, I think that is cool that, even if you don't have all of your documentation, like you said, maybe it's in English or French,
Yeah.
but no matter what language they're coming to you in, it can give it back to them in that language. So that's fantastic.
When I think for enterprise software, there's probably more, but the two main things I think of are it's going to help engagement with the employees. More engaged employees are happier employees stay employed longer. They're more productive. So that's the right reason to do it, is engagement. The secondary reason is also compliance and protection against legal claims, because if you have a knowledge bot that can translate 100% of your English content to any other language that your native employees speak, then there's no reason they can't get the answers that they can understand.
Yeah.
And that helps, I think, for any kind of litigation that may arise. So I think those two are probably two of many more reasons that this translation thing is actually a lot bigger. It may not be the subtext to Chat GPT. It could be one of the main items that make it a compelling reason to go with it.
Well,
or,
just
or BARD or any of them.
a software development perspective, I mean, it's a constant thing. Like once you start supporting a language, every new feature you add, every string that you add to the system, you have to send out for translations. If you get it back,
Yes.
I mean, you still have to do the QA process on that and things like that.
Right.
But the fact that you could translate this on the fly is a huge time saver from a development, I would think, perspective as well. So.
Yeah, absolutely. That's something we're working on right now. We're still trying to decide exactly all the details, but translate on the fly to the user's native language for all messages. We just talked about that one, but then all the way back to where we started, just the interface of the software itself.
Yeah.
So if I want to see that in,
like a real time
form,
it's kind of crazy. Like
that's
not
right,
even
real time
may support today, but somebody comes along and needs
for
it.
sure.
And it's almost like an instant switch to turn it on, and they get it.
Yeah, keep it all in English makes
Crazy.
development fast. Translate on the fly to what they need. And this translation is so superior, like your example showed. It's going to be better than a translation service would do.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yep.
So
yeah, it's better than the humans in this case. So.
Yeah.
All right, I'm going to recap the three. Oh, go ahead, Park.
Oh, I was just going to say, out of all these items, selfishly, this is the one I'm most excited about. I know you mentioned that I do know Spanish. I wouldn't say I'm necessarily proficient, but getting this.
I'm sure your Spanish is better than my Chinese. I know that. Yeah.
Well, I don't know about that, but yeah, I think that's awesome. Selfishly, that's the one I'm most excited about out of these topics that you mentioned. So
yeah, and just to recap them as we close here. I mean, number one, knowledge bot. They're all related, but this knowledge bot, the idea that we have a bot to go back and forth with. Number two, this new natural language interface, brand new way to interface with data and software, both input and output. And of course, the last one we got to do with the translation. So I think those are three that we all agree are pretty good candidates for three ways that Chat GPT and BARD and these large language models are going to change enterprise software in the next year or two.
Yeah, well, it's crazy because it's real today. Like these are things that you could, with some time and energy, like just figuring it out, you could implement this today for your enterprise software. So that's what we're working on. I'm sure a lot of people are looking at different ways to use these tools, but those are three really fantastic ones for enterprise.
Well, we've already done one of them and we're working on the other two right now. We're going to do two really soon. And then the third translation one should be this year. So I agree. It shouldn't take long. If your enterprise software doesn't have these, be on the lookout. It should get it soon. Something like this.
Yeah. Awesome. And obviously as AI continues to get better, new services come up. I'm sure we'll have more things to talk about in future episodes and kind of touch back on past episodes. So like always, thanks again for tuning in, everyone. Ryan, Tom, thanks for hopping on. We appreciate it and we'll catch you next time. So thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, everyone.